Hey everybody, Josh Wagner, Wondering to Work, and today I'm wondering about uncertainty. The reason I'm bringing this up, uncertainty, is it's someone actually told me yesterday, a friend of mine I was talking to, who said human beings need both certainty and uncertainty. And I said, well, that seems strange because most people don't actually like uncertainty. And they said, well, but otherwise it'd be boring. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. And it's right along the lines of, and probably why we were talking about it, of a book I'm reading called Embracing Uncertainty by Susan Jeffers. She wrote another book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I'll link both of those books in the description. Both awesome books. I highly recommend both of them, especially if you have to deal with a lot of fear or worry. The first one's really good, but they're really both kind of experts. They're both really kind of books that have their expertise in worrying and letting go and sort of going with the flow and not worrying about tomorrow and enjoying today, that kind of stuff, the sort of things you hear from a lot of mindfulness people. But she, in her book, talks about, in both of those books, talks about how to deal with, fear and uncertainty. And obviously, we all have a ton of uncertainty. I will say that there are certain decisions I made in my life so that I would have certain safeties or have certain guarantees in my life. And when those guarantees turned out not to be valid, and they weren't guarantees at all, I was disappointed. And I know a lot of people get that way. People get that way about a job or money or this, that, or the other thing, that they think that they have this expectation like this thing's going to fix them or be forever. I mean, it's just sometimes things aren't, and nothing is in terms of things in this life. Every relationship ends, and people get sick, and people lose jobs, and people lose houses, and pets die, and all those kind of things. And it's hard, and we know that those things happen. And sometimes we get so overwhelmed all at once with all the possibilities of all the things that can go bad, or we put all of our eggs into this one basket where we kind of do the opposite thing, where we say, well, this is finally going to be the thing that fixes me. When in reality, we don't have a clue about how any of it's going to turn out. And the book really basically sort of encourages us to embrace that uncertainty. Again, there's two levels. There's two ends of the spectrum. It's this sort of desire for certainty of excellent things, like awesome things in our life. Like this boat's going to fix me. This drink's going to fix me. This whatever's going to fix me. Then there's the opposite thing, where I'm certain everything's going to go wrong. I know that I'm going to lose my job. I know that I'm going to die. I know that there's no point to all this, whatever. What she says is that you don't really know, and you should embrace that not knowing. And she has several exercises through the book that are pretty good. But one, there's a couple that I'd like to sort of share with you that I picked up. One is from Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And she kind of puts all of her good stuff right at the beginning of the book, which is kind of interesting. I think it's really smart. I think in both, Feel the Fear had good stuff all the way through. But at the beginning of Feel the Fear, it's she says, don't forget that you've handled things in the past. You'll handle things again in the future, no matter what comes. And when you start to worry about things, and this has been immensely helpful for me, you say, I'll handle it. I'll handle it. So I'm going to if I lose my job, I'll handle it. I'll start driving Uber. If this relationship doesn't work out, I'll handle it. I'll find someone else. If this thing costs too much money and I can't afford it, I'll handle it. I'll save up my money and do something else. If I go on a trip and it gets canceled or rains all the time, I'll handle it. And I know that seems really, really simple, but her techniques are so powerful in terms of, like, I've been doing that, I'll handle it. Boy, that's just been so helpful. And it's been good to help with my friends, too, who are going through difficult times, I had a friend who thought they were going to lose their job, and I said, well, if you do, you'll handle it. It's like, and then they were like, oh my gosh, you're right. And they didn't lose their job, so that's good. But they handled it either way. And the other one that I think is very helpful is in the Embracing Uncertainty book, and it's the maybe principle. I don't know if she calls it the maybe principle, but I've found it immensely helpful when I start to get overwhelmed with worry or wondering how things are going to turn out. I say things like, maybe that'll work out, maybe it won't. Maybe I'll get a raise, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll lose my job, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll find the love of my life, maybe I won't. Maybe my pet will survive 10 years, maybe he won't. There's all sorts of ways that when those sort of automatic thoughts, and that's exactly what they are, enter our heads, that we can find ourselves like getting overwhelmed. But what happens, this is what I think happens with this maybe principle, and that's sort of what I'm calling. I don't think she called it that, but it's like we have all the good stuff that's down here. Like, oh, I hope I win the lottery, or I hope I get a raise, or I hope I do this, that, or the other thing. And then we have the other level that's up here, like, it's more intense because of the way our brains are designed. I'm going to get hit by a truck. I'm going to get cancer. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. The worries that you have. And what I think that it does is, what the maybe principle does is it brings up the positive and it brings down the negative, and it kind of makes them equal in the sense that, either of these things can happen, and if they do, I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it. I'll handle it. I mean, it has been, I've been doing it. My friend David told me about this maybe principle a couple months ago before I started reading the book, because I was in the middle of another long, very deep book that I can only read a few pages at a time, and I had to think about a lot. And so I've been kind of using this maybe principle for maybe about 2 months now. And I got to tell you, there's been some major things come my way, and potentially. And I said, well, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I'll handle it either way. Sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't. I handled it either way. So it does work, and has calmed me down, because I have anxiety, just like everybody else does. Like, I don't know how much anxiety everybody else has, but I have enough anxiety where I was on medication for a long time on it. Not too long, but on that sort of thing. And boy, I got to tell you, this has been, there's a couple other techniques that I learned, but this is one of the best ones. So there's lots of other things in her books. Feel the fear and do it anyway. In fact, I felt so good at the end of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I wanted to read it again. I ended up going to a different book, and then I went back to her book, her Embracing Uncertainty. But boy, if you have trouble with worry, if you have trouble with anxiety, these are two excellent books. Again, I will link them in the description to my Amazon, or to an Amazon page, and you can download them. So follow me at Wondering to Work, WonderToWork, either on Facebook or Instagram. And I hope you have a great day. Wondering to Work.